I love the Olympics. There's nothing like the Olympics, except sometimes C-SPAN. Sometimes the action in Washington is as full contact as any full-body check in hockey. Sometimes the action in Washington even has forced penalty box timeouts, like it's Slovakia versus Serbia after a particularly hard-fought power play. Did you see what happened today in the House with Anthony Weiner? I cannot make this any better by editing it or cutting it up in any way. Just watch this raw. Watch it.
Anthony, go for it.
You got to yield.
I'd yield. Weiner. Yep.
You know, you got to love these Republicans. I mean, you guys have chutzpah. The Republican Party is a wholly owned subsidiary of an insurance industry. That's the fact. They say that, well, this isn't going to do enough, but when we propose an alternative to provide competition, they're against it. They say that, well, we want to strengthen state insurance commissioners and they'll do the job. But when we did that in our national health care bill, they said, we're against it. They said they want to have competition, and when we proposed requiring competition, the Republicans are against it. They are a wholly owned subsidiary of the insurance industry. That's the fact. And now they stand up and say that...
Mr. Speaker, I ask the gentleman's words be taken down.
Oh. You really don't want to go here, Mr. Lundgren.
The gentleman will suspend. Gentleman from New York will please take a seat. The clerk will report the words.
And you see he's like in the penalty box there. You see him walking off? Getting your words taken down is this sort of mild form of censure in the House. So Anthony Weiner gets sat down and his words get taken down. But watch what he says when he gets back up. The very first thing he says when they let him out of the penalty box. Watch what happens.
Is the gentleman seeking unanimous consent to withdraw his words?
I request unanimous consent to substitute other words.
That would involve a withdrawal. There's a gentleman withdrawing.
Request unanimous consent to withdraw my words.
Is there objection to the request? Objection so ordered.
How much time do I have remaining?
The gentleman from Oregon has 3 minutes remaining. Gentleman from New York is recognized.
Make no mistake about it. Every single Republican I have ever met in my entire life is a wholly owned subsidiary of the insurance industry. That is why Americans...
Mr. Speaker, I ask the gentleman's words be taken down once more.
I will suspend. From New York will please take a seat. The clerk will report the words.
And he's back in the penalty box again. Now, the context here is that Anthony Weiner has been given this time on the floor by Pete DeFazio of Oregon. And Pete DeFazio of Oregon at this point is sort of visibly shocked and maybe delighted by what Anthony Weiner is doing with this time. Watch how this part of this ends.
I thank you very much. Look, the point is very simple. There are inequities in the present way we distribute insurance, the way we distribute health care. There are winners and there are losers. The winners are the insurance industry. And our efforts to reel in the insurance profits, not just because they shouldn't make profits, they're doing what they're supposed to. But what they're doing is driving up taxes, they're driving our economy into the ground, and we need competition and choice to deal with that. That's what this legislation does, and the motion to recommit undermines it. And I've heard a couple of times today, well, we have an effort for bipartisanship here. No, there is not bipartisanship on this fundamental issue. And that is the people who sit on this side at the risk of offending anyone generally support the idea of standing up for the American people in their daily battles against high insurance. And the people, generally speaking, who sit on this side of the chamber, and specifically speaking as well in a lot of cases, simply won't permit that to happen and haven't for a generation. Well, that's going to end now. That is going to end because we are going to have competition, we are going to make sure that there are regulations, and we're going to make sure that the American people aren't gouged. That's what the American people stand for. And time again, people said, well, I don't really mind this bill, I just want to weaken it to the point that it's meaningless. And then I've heard my good friend from Texas say, well, this doesn't do anything, but every single time we've tried to do something like a tiny sliver of competition called the public option, said, no, we can't withstand competition, we can't have that. Enough of the phoniness. We are going to solve this problem because for years our Republican friends have been unable to and unwilling to deal with it.
I thank the gentleman for those remarks. In summary.
We indeed thank the gentleman for those remarks. Anthony Weiner has been a frequent guest on this and lots of other TV shows since the health reform fight started, because that's the way he talks about health reform. I was in Washington recently, and a center-right influential columnist think tank guy, I was talking with him about health reform, and he sort of rubbed his hands in glee and said that he hopes Anthony Weiner keeps going on TV a lot because Anthony Weiner gives health reform a bad name. He hopes Anthony Weiner keeps going on TV a lot because he makes health reform look bad. I don't know about that. I think the way Congressman Weiner talks about health reform shows what it looks like for Democrats to stand up on their hind legs and fight, to be bare-knuckled about getting something passed, to say that bipartisanship is a farce if one side wants to pass something and the other one doesn't. I think the common wisdom guys in Washington hate that. They're terrified of it. But I think it's what a lot of people who voted in a huge blue tide of Democrats in the last two elections have been waiting to hear. And consider it in context, too, substantively. Profits at the top 5 largest for-profit insurance companies rose 56% last year. They made $4.5 billion more in 2009 over what they made in 2008, while dropping more than 2.5 million people as customers. And for those companies, that's great news. That's how it works. That's business. Don't blame them for that. I mean, well, do if you want, but don't blame them entirely. This is business 101. It's how they profit. It's not for-profit insurers' fault that they do everything they can to not pay out when people they insure get sick. It's not for-profit insurers' fault that they do everything they can to avoid giving insurance to people who actually need health care. It's not for-profit insurers' fault that they hike premiums by anything they can get away with, by double digits every year, year after year after year. So we're getting to the point where $1 in every $5 we spend on anything in this economy is spent on their dumb, evil health system. And that's with 50 million of us still uninsured. I mean, times are great for WellPoint, right? In 2008, 39 WellPoint executives were getting paid more than $1 million a year. In 2007 and 2008, WellPoint spent $27 million on retreats for their executives. And they've got us over a barrel. 39% rate hikes here in California this year. In Maine, WellPoint's going for a 23% rate hike this year after 5 consecutive years of double-digit premium increases on those same policies. WellPoint's hiking rates by up to 50% in Indiana this year. 29% hike in New York State for small businesses insured by WellPoint. Things are going great for WellPoint. Don't blame them. It's not their fault. They're a private for-profit business. They do not care about this country. It is not their job to care about this country. They are not a person. They do not have feelings. They are a corporation. They're a company. They are not a person. They are doing the job that is their fiduciary responsibility to do for their own shareholders. It is not their job to get health care to the American people. It is their job to make as much money as possible off of the fact that the American people, like all people, need health care, which is expensive, which we don't have the luxury of shopping for, like we shop for cars or eggs or sneakers, because it's cancer, it's pregnancy, it's appendicitis, it's a compound fracture, it's a heart attack, it's diabetes, it's relief of pain at the time of death. We have private for-profit companies who are trying to make as much profit as possible off our need for that care. And the point is not to blame them for them wanting to make a profit, but to not look at what they're doing and call it a healthcare system. It's a profit-making system for companies that is not designed to meet your needs or my needs or our needs as a country. The better business health insurance companies do, the worse off the American people and the American economy are. The incentives are wrong. Health insurance companies are the healthcare system in this country. By and large, that's what our system is. It's for-profit companies. And that means there is a problem in the system. The incentives are wrong. It is individually rational for each private for-profit company that makes up this system to make decisions that are bad for the country. So we end up with a bad system. Republican invitees to the health care summit tomorrow include Wisconsin Congressman Paul Ryan and Tennessee Congresswoman Marsha Blackburn. Their proposals on health care are to get rid of the main system that saves the elderly in our country from the for-profit system that would eat them alive. The Republican plan, the plan favored by the Republican negotiators, is to end Medicare. Get rid of it. Go to a purely for-profit system. Let WellPoint and all the goodness in WellPoint's heart take care of the 85-year-olds among us who they want to buy private insurance on the open market. Some Democrats, like Anthony Weiner, want the opposite. They want the WellPoints of this world out of it altogether. They want Medicare for all. Let companies find their profits and make millionaires out of their executives and fund their dozens of multi-million-dollar retreats at resorts from a sector of the economy that isn't healthcare, that isn't cancer and hospice and broken bones. Republicans want it to be all WellPoint, all for profit, no safety net, not even for old people. Kill Medicare. That's who they're bringing to the Health Summit. Up on their hind legs, Democratic fighters like Anthony Weiner want Medicare for all. Democrats aren't even letting him in the door to that summit tomorrow. So to the White House, I say this. A lot more people are with Anthony Weiner and against the insurance companies than are with Marsha Blackburn and Paul Ryan, who want to hand the insurance companies even more of our blood and treasure. You ignore the public option and the appeal of Medicare for all at your very grave peril.